All right, we're doing this show tonight on Monday night as opposed to Saturday immediately after the game. And the reason for that is just simply for two reasons. Just number one, I wanted to hear first what Shane said in his press conference following the game. And then I wanted to put it off because of what he did say in his press conference after the game. Right after the game against Ole Miss, Shane Beamer was asked if there was going to be any staff shakeups, any shakeups at all. And rather than his usual emphatic no, he basically was saying, um, it almost was like, we'll look into it. Well, what do you know? It turned out that he, I think, even at that point, had made a decision, but uh, it just depended. And I think obviously, today, the main story is Shane has made a move and Mike Shula has been removed from the coaching staff and no longer is in Columbia. So I'm trying to find the direct quote here, uh, which he said right after the game. It was, I'll look at it. Obviously, we've got to get a lot fixed. Everybody in that locker room right now, I think he was talking about not just not just the offensive staff, but players, coaches, everybody in that. But he didn't shut the door on it. He left it wide open, and that's one of those. In the moment, you say, that's unusual," and then you remind yourself, well, leave that to whatever interpretation you want. And again, just something told me, wait this one out instead of giving the immediate reaction. The reaction of the game, of course, is a change had to be made. You look at the way this season has gone, and it has been anything but what was expected. The expectation was it was going to be a very strong season, one where Carolina would contend for the college football playoff. Lenoris would be competing for the Heisman, and uh, the passing game was going to be good. The running game, although would take a step back because of what you lose when you don't have Rocket Sanders anymore. At the same time, you feel like the additions of Rasul Faison and Matthew Fuller to the rotation are going to kind of offset all that and still have a good running game. None of that has happened. Play calling this year from Mike Shula has been absolutely, and you don't like dogpiling on somebody, but the proof is in the pudding. The play calling from Carolina's offensive standpoint has been absolutely atrocious. The average numbers are there. Carolina is last in just about every major offensive category in the SEC, and very close to dead last in the country in every major offensive category in the country. Carolina is the only team in the country right now without 350 yards of total offense, and that includes games against Kentucky and Carolina State. Obviously, in 3 weeks or in 2 weeks, Carolina will face Coastal Carolina, so you never know what might happen there. You might have an offensive explosion. You might be in a dogfight. You just never know. But that being said, the numbers don't lie. Sometimes you can mask the numbers. Lenoris, his sack rate was high, uh, and it was just he just has not looked comfortable all year. Uh, it's so apparent that somewhere along the way, from the time Dowell Loggins left after the season finale last year, the regular season finale, and whether I don't know if it was even to opening day, it might have even been in the bowl game because I remember watching in the bowl game. Just Lenoris did not look comfortable, and he didn't look confident throwing the ball. Some of that is Illinois game planning, but it may also be because they started coaching him differently because Mike Shula was not only the offensive play caller, the offensive coordinator, he was also the quarterbacks coach. So I think somewhere in there, in his tutelage, the regression began. Lenoris just for whatever reason, aside from maybe the Kentucky game and at times in the Alabama game, just never looked like himself. And it's a shame. There are questions right now as to whether or not Lenore Sellers will uh, be back next year or if he'll enter his name into the NFL draft or maybe he would enter into the transfer portal. Me personally, I think after the regular season finale this year, I think he is done with college football. Just my opinion. So right now, obviously, the big story is the change in offensive coordinator, which again, I think, like a lot of people, is happening far too late. Uh, but it also kind of makes me think maybe, just maybe, Mike Fury and Sean Elliott are going to come in and install a little bit of a different offense because this move is happening the week of a bye week. So this will give the offense a chance to um, not come up with a brand new playbook. You certainly can't do that at this point in the season. You can't do that at any point during the season. But I think what they'll do is they'll tweak it a little bit, come up with a couple of plays here and there that they will keep and take the rest and throw them out. And I think you're going to see the game against Texas A&M called differently. Whether or not that will lead to a Carolina victory, I would be very surprised if that happens. I'll be honest, I don't see Carolina going to College Station and winning. But you never know what could happen right now because you still have a freak athlete at the quarterback position. You still have a freak athlete at the wide receiver position. You've still got a very deep wide receiver room. You've got a good running back room. It's not a bad group of players. I just think that the calls that they've been given and the scheme that they're running has been awful. The offensive line, however, is still not good. I don't know if that's because of the scheme that Shula is running or because of the talent up front. On paper, these guys look like they were rather talented. A lot of them were highly rated coming out of high school. And one thing that Sean Elliott has done in the last 3 games since he took over after the LSU game when Lonnie Teasley was let go, the pre-snap penalties have been cut down. The penalties in general have been cut down. Some of them came at very untimely moments, whether it be against Alabama or Ole Miss. But that being said, some of the things that were happening with Lonnie Teasley as the offensive line coach have been cleaned up. And we know what Sean Elliott's resume is. I think Shane would be foolish to move on from him. I think if he is, when he goes to talk with the new offensive coordinator, he says, look, we've got a good staff in place. My offensive line coach is staying regardless. I think Shane does still have that leverage right now to be able to go to an offensive coordinator and say, I've got a good staff in place. If you want to bring some guys in, that's fine. But you are not touching my wide receivers and you're not touching my offensive line coaches. That's just me personally, but maybe Shane will say, look, if you want to clean house, do what you would like. Again, I don't see that, but you never know. In terms of what the future will look like, who it's going to be, don't know yet. It is way too early to tell. But that being said, what we can speculate are a few other things. If you are looking for an offensive coordinator and you're looking at the roster that's coming back next season, it's going to be different than it was going into this season. One of the things that made Carolina so attractive to the AP voters and to a lot of fans to believing that this was going to be a banner year is that you returned so much on the offensive side of the ball. All of the receivers who were not seniors last year remained. There was very few movements in the portal last year. It was big that you had Lenore Sellers come back. It was big that you had Nick Harbor come back. You added Rasul Faison. I think that, and this is just speculation, you're going to have a lot more uh, players exit out of the portal this year than you did a year ago. Some are probably going to be wanting a reset because some of them are going to be on that from that offensive line. It may be because they may want to just hit a complete reset and move on. It may also be because Shane Beamer and Sean Elliott might just say, we don't have a spot for you next year. You might want to find a new home, which happens, by the way. People don't realize that coaches will actually go to players and say, hit the portal, pal. It always looks like it's the player leaving the team, but it can be quite the opposite. That is one thing that the portal does offer to coaches. It offers them the opportunity to take a scholarship player and cut them, basically, and say, you're not playing anymore. But that remains to be seen. That will not be happening for another 4 weeks. Um, Going back, though, to the Ole Miss game, we got to recap it. It started out as well as you could ask. Um, you get a stop on the opening series. You get a 3-and-out, but then Ole Miss exploits you and reels off, I believe it was a 24-yard gain to pick up a first down on what ended up being a fake punt by accident. But then you get another stop. Ole Miss punts. You get the ball, put a little here and there, and then you get a break on special teams when their return man muffs it, and you capitalize and score a touchdown, something that Carolina has not done very well in the red zone this year. So then it kind of looks like what we've come to see. Carolina's defense gives up a few drives, gives up a few points, and it's a close game at the half. And it's a close game because the defense has kept you in it. The offense is sputtering. Lenoris does not look comfortable. He's missing guys who are wide open. Look, Lenoris was off the other night. He's been off pretty much all season for the most part. He hasn't played his best game this year. There's no question about that. Again, I think that's partly on him. That's partly on Mike Shula because that's how he's been coached. And a little bit of that has to be on the offensive line too. Ole Miss was getting home the other night with 2- and 3-man rushes. It does not matter what level of football you are on. You cannot have your offensive line be beat by 3- and 2-man rushes. Now, look, we talked about Sean Elliott coming in and doing a lot of good things, but for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the scheme or if it's the talent, but these guys just are not getting it done up front. And that is very concerning right now. You have to wonder, what is the future to every offensive coach here? Personally, I like Sean Elliott. I want Sean Elliott back. But I think there's going to have to be maybe some turnover there up front on the offensive line itself. But maybe it's the scheme. This pro-style scheme that Shula wants to run and that Shane Beamer likes, it doesn't work anymore. It's got to go the way of the dodo. It needs to be retired, and you need to have something that's a little bit more innovative than I formation, line up under center, 7-step drop, 5-step drop, this, that, and the other. Just all this basic stuff. Nothing that Mike Shula has come up with has thrown defensive coordinators for a loop. The formations are very bunched and very predictable. If you're going to be a good offense in this day and age, you have to know how to spread the field out. That's something that Mike Shula hasn't done, and that's part of why Mike Shula is no longer on staff at South Carolina. I guess we can go back to the Shula firing. For me, for a lot of people, the jump-off point was much earlier in the season. For me, it was the Oklahoma game when it just felt like every single play, inside zone, right up the middle with Faison, and it would go for 1, none, or negative yardage. And it just became infuriating to watch. And it also was very predictable. And Oklahoma feasted. One of the best defenses in the country, by the way. And Mike Shula had absolutely nothing for them. So I can't defend that. Uh, that was, again, the point for me where I just said, look, you might be able to ride this thing out for the rest of the year, but there is no way Mike Shula can come back next season. And Shane Beamer, I think, had seen enough. It's all speculation, but certainly Jeremiah Donati had seen enough, and it was time to pull the plug. Um, it was probably time to pull the plug a few weeks ago. Uh, I get why you want to wait till the bye week because you don't want to change the playbook up if you're going to make changes. You know, going from Oklahoma to Alabama. Maybe it should have happened, before even the bye week. But got to remember the game leading out of the bye week was, or leading into the bye week was the Kentucky game, and the offense looked like it was getting itself together. However, you still had a lot of help from your defensive effort at that point, a lot of defensive scores. I think Carolina had 2 that night. You were getting special team scores earlier in the year, 3 Vakari Swain punt returns for touchdowns. Very impressive, of course. But Carolina, aside from maybe the opening drive of the season, just has not put together a very strong, well-sustained drive that, one, has the defense guessing from start to finish, and 2, you haven't seen a drive all year where Carolina has gone out and enforced its will on an opposing defense. Everything has been a struggle, and some of the scores, 3 of them so far this year, have been on long, deep strikes to Nick Harbor. Few and far between. I think they've only tried maybe about 4 of them, 3 of which have been successful. And it's been, from a fan standpoint, very, very frustrating. So I don't know what the plan going forward in the next 3 games is. It's got to be better than what we've seen. Clearly, it has to be. It can't get any worse because Carolina literally is the worst in the Southeastern Conference. The problem is that you only have 1 conference game left, and it's at College Station. When you go to Texas A&M on the 14th, I believe, regardless of what day it is. But yeah, it's the next game. You have a little time to get it right, but you don't have that much time. It'll be interesting to see, no question about that. Going forward, as far as who the offensive coordinator is going to be, well, I don't have any names really out there who Shane Beamer is interested in. It's way too early for that. But you have an abundance of coordinators to choose from. I've heard Kendall Briles thrown out there. Who knows? He might be getting the Arkansas job. It's pretty close probably for him to get a head coaching job. Can you pry a coordinator away from a big-time program? You look at what Ole Miss is doing with Charlie Weiss Jr. I'm not opposed to Jonathan Brewer at Duke. I think he's pretty solid if you want to take a look at the options that you have. You might be going to a coordinator in the group of 5, or maybe even a lower level. If the scheme works, then that's all you need. And if the scheme is working, go with it. But it will be hard to tell. It's early on. One thing I can say for sure, regardless of who it is and regardless of what scheme Shane wants to go with, Shane has got to get it right this time. I don't know what the scheme has to be. It certainly, I think, would need to be something that is clearly not what either Marcus Satterfield nor Mike Shula were going with, which is the prototypical NFL style. But I think one problem that, and speaking of Satterfield, and I'll throw him in there, one of the things that I think both Mike Shula and Marcus Satterfield have, they don't have a read for the game. They don't know what to call in certain spots. If you get, absolutely hate this when a coach is married to the script. We see the script happening on every opening drive now, it seems like. And this is where Carolina fans, myself included, were absolutely spoiled to death with Steve Spurrier. Spurrier didn't have a script. And you talk to any of his quarterbacks, they will tell you he was best when it was off script, when things broke down or when things were kind of in a spot where you don't typically get. That's where Spurrier was at his best. The one thing you could only predict with Steve Spurrier was that if you got around midfield or if you had a break go your way or you had a little momentum swing, he was taking a shot. It didn't matter what part of the game, what part of the field, he was taking a shot. More often than not, especially in the later years, it worked. How many times did we see Connor Shaw drop back on a three-step drop and nail Demir Bird on a deep post pattern, and he's all alone because, well, Demir Bird runs probably as fast as Nick Harbor does, or at least he did when he was in college. You just never saw that with Mike Shula, and you haven't seen that really since Spurrier. It seemed like if Carolina would get a turnover or get a good punt return, you get it out to midfield with Shula, first down, inside zone with Faison or Fuller. And it just kept repeating itself. It's the definition of insanity. Continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect the different result. At some point, it had to come to a head, and it did. But again, going back to my main point that I was trying to make before I tailed off there, Shane Beamer is clearly going to be under the microscope this coming season. I'm fine with him coming back. And I'm fine with him coming back for a couple of reasons. Recruiting is going well. Strength and conditioning is good, and the culture in the locker room is good. Some of the fans are throwing in the towel right now, but not all. I think if he does get this one right, and he is not going to have a very long leash on this one. If he gets this one right, well, everything's good. We're all good. But if he doesn't, then the good news here is that you're not going to be competing with Florida, LSU, Arkansas, Auburn, Penn State, UCLA. You're not going to have to worry about those 6 schools right there. You're probably not going to have to worry about a lot of schools in the SEC right now or across the country. The only school I can think of off the top of my head right now who not after the 2025 season, but after the 2026 season that may be in the market, and this could surprise people, I think Miami's going to be in the market next year because Cristobal has let them down. They were expecting to be in the playoff last year and this year, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen this year. So if they don't get it right, they're going to be in the market for a head coach. But I would imagine they probably wouldn't be looking at the same candidates necessarily that Carolina is. Don't forget right now, Oklahoma State's in the market for a head coach. Let's look at who could also potentially enter the We Want Lane Kiffin sweepstakes. Kentucky. I think they're going to be making a move at the end of this season. Hard to say who else at this point. There will certainly be more movement. I'm sure there'll be more movement after the season concludes. Florida State probably is going to be in the market after this season. So it'll be interesting to see where different coaches end up, who ends up hiring who, what retreads are going to get scooped up, and what fan bases are going to be disappointed with the end results because, look, I don't think Lane Kiffin is leaving Auburn. Or, excuse me, I don't think he's leaving Ole Miss. So there are going to be at least 3 different SEC programs following the conclusion of this season that are going to be very disappointed should he decide to stay in Oxford, which he should. I think that you're going to see somebody take a chance on James Franklin. A lot of speculation is that it'll be Virginia Tech. You never know where Jimbo Fisher might land. You never know if Coach O might get back in the game. He wants to. He's made it abundantly clear. He wants that LSU job again. But all that being said is bringing Shane back is not the worst idea because if it doesn't work next year, you're going to have to make a move early in the season. I think if the offense can't get it going, and how it looks is going to be up for interpretation as well. Because, as we mentioned earlier, it's not likely you're going to have the same kind of roster retention next year that you were able to have this past year. If you do, great. But it's also likely, very likely, you're going to be breaking in a new starting quarterback. Is it going to be Cutter Woods? Is it going to be Aaron Nolan? Is it going to be Landon Duckworth? If I had to put money on it right now, I would not hesitate in putting money on Duckworth, just simply because Cutter Woods, Aaron Nolan, from what we've seen and heard, probably just not the guys. Nothing wrong with that. They're just not. It happens. Maybe it'll be a transfer guy. You never know. The offensive coordinator who they bring in might be bringing a quarterback in as a package deal. Anything is on the table right now. Anything and everything is on the table right now. As far as who it'll be, I think Mike Furry is going to be given the play calling duties for the most part here. I think Sean Elliott's going to have a lot of input, particularly in the running game. He is the running game coordinator. But it looks like Mike Furry is going to have the vast majority of the play calling duty. Is it an audition for him? Probably not. I don't think if you're Shane Beamer, you can really afford to go in-house, especially if you don't win out here. If you do and everybody looks great, well, then there's a conversation to be had. But if you don't make a bowl game, regardless of what you do against your last two in-state opponents, if you only come out of this season with one SEC win and that offensive talent and you're coming back, you are going to have to make a splash higher. Fortunately, though, as dense as the head coaching field is and head coaching market is, you certainly are in a better position to go coordinator shopping right now than you are head coaching shopping. It's just right now not the best time to go head coach shopping. Coordinator shopping, though, is never a bad time. And there are good coordinators out there, whether they're well known or not. There are plenty of good coordinators out there who you could go get, who will be good at play calling, who will come up with good schemes. I think that Shane understands this right now, at least, this pro style that he has been married to has got to go. If not, then that will make the leash, especially with the fans, a lot shorter. It'll be interesting to hear what he says in the coming days. He's got an SEC teleconference on Wednesday. No press conference on Tuesday because it's a bye week, but looking forward to hearing what he has to say on Wednesday. Looking forward to hearing what he'll say next Tuesday going into the A&M game, and certainly looking forward to seeing what the offense looks like against A&M. Will it be enough to win? Not putting money on it. Not confident about that at all, but would like to see if it can do a few things that it hasn't done because of Mike Shula hindering it, like gaining 350 yards, scoring more than 22 points. We shall see. Time will tell, and we'll probably end up doing a show next week just to kind of preview the A&M game and just kind of review where we are at that point. Look at who the potential candidates are, because I'm sure that, the sources that are out there will be dropping them more, and we'll just see. But it'll be interesting from now until that point. So, all right, that will conclude our analysis of the recap of Ole Miss and the dismissal of Mike Shula, and perhaps maybe even the future of Shane Beamer. So again, it'll be interesting these next few weeks.